are we eternal? He will say, you as an aspect are temporal. Of course you're temporal. But you as the entirety of existence are eternal. It's amazing, isn't it, the way he's coming out with his answers. We'll say, what about Gabriel? Is he eternal? So he's eternal. But as Gabriel, he is an effect of God. But as existence, there is no effect of anything else, because there's nothing beyond existence. Can you see where he's coming from? So we ask him now, well, what is the distinction between God and world? What is the meaning of transcendence? Here and then we want to fully bring in Ibn Arabi in a little while, yes? And he's following Ibn Arabi through and through. He says, well, God is existence in its entirety. And that is transcendent. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. Yes? God is existence in its entirety. Because there's nothing like it. There's no contrast to it. There's nothing but existence. There's no limit to it. There is no beginning to it. There's no end to it. Can you see that? We say, well, what is the world? He will say, anything other than existence in its entirety is the world. We'll say, are there two separate entities? He will say, no, it's one and the same thing. Then of course, if you understood his causation, then you will know. But even then, you will be forgiven for not understanding. And you will say, you know what, it still doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense when I hear it, but I can't envisage it. It's true. It's difficult to understand it. And he himself says you need to intuit it, not to construct imagery, because it defies it. Because then it becomes a limited aspect of existence. Have you understood this? Yes? Have you understood that? Because we want to go into Ibn Arabi and properly try to...
The only issue is, when you talked about us as human beings, and then you use the term that we are the modulation of the existence of God, does that modulation then involve...
Well, we're not saying existence of God, because we're very careful in the way we use our terms. Modulation of existence.
Modulation of existence, in that you then become subservient to different laws, physical laws?
Of course we are. But I'm going to drive
it. There's still a step then, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to drive it further.
It's not complete oneness then.
No. This is what Sadra was all about. And thank you very much for pointing that out. So according to the Sadrian understanding, there is unity of existence. And there is unity of existent in its multiplicity. So he is admitting to a distinct world from God. God as God is God. The world as world is world distinct from God. And in its multiplicity, it's one. Because the grass, the trees, the human being, the Jibrails, the imaginary realms, the Khizrs, the Jesuses, all of these are bound together through existence. So in its multiplicity, it is united. So he's admitting to God and the world. How does he do that? He says, God projects himself, his own beauty. I was a hidden treasure, I wish to be known, and hence I created you, O Muhammad. That was the first realization of God's own beauty to his own self. This he calls the process of emanation, taken from the Neoplatonics. The process of emanation, as Jawadi Amuli explains it so beautifully, can be given the analogy of, could be explained to the analogy of rain. When it's in the clouds, it's the same as when it descends on the floor, and yet it's different. It's the same water, yet at a different rank. You see that? This is the story of God in the world. The world is no less existent, but at a different rank, not at an absolute rank. God is at an absolute rank. But I'm sure we haven't conceived of it as it's supposed to be conceived. Even now, I'm pretty sure. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more from Ibn Arabi.
It's clear, a lot of things. They are making sense now, the relationships.
Yeah.
It's more like a fluid relationship rather than box-like entities.
So we think it is itself, but look at this particular understanding before we go anywhere else. There is no evil, there is no good, because evil and good are the inner contrast of existence. But existence as a whole cannot be marked by good or by evil. Can you see that? It's the inner contrasts that occur within the workings of the world that brings about this good, this evil, the relativity, so on and so forth. But existence as existence is untouched by any value. It's totally untouched. Yes, and we obviously pointed out the negative theology thing last time when you were here, that when you apply this scenario of negative theology, you can't even attribute existence because it's fullness of everything. It's fullness of beauty in its entirety. It is absolute life, it is absolute knowledge, it is absolute ability, and God is all those beautiful things in its absoluteness. Yes? Did we get that so far before we move on? Do we have any thoughts before we go anywhere?
I didn't get it. Just the bit about, sorry, the bit about everything is beauty. Not when I look at you, it's love.
Look,
When you come into my head,
you see, this is how we presume God in the world, right? We presume God to be here, and then He creates the world like this. Can you see that?
yeah.
And there you find Yazid, who is evil, and whoever else we find there, right? However, if we were to conceive it differently, as opposed to having this God and world here, and world is good or bad, yes? If we were to conceive it like this, as a circle, yes? And you can maybe place God at the center, yes? And God's light emanating and becoming the world. Yes? No, not really. Can you see it?
I can't see it, but I know what you're doing.
Okay, so you have a center, and the center projects itself to the fullest of circumference and beyond. Yes? Then you will see that the conflicts here and here are termed as good and evil.
I prefer to speak.
No, at anywhere, at any point. At any point you will see the inner conflicts, the internal conflicts will be termed as good or evil. But the whole thing as a whole doesn't have any contrast. It is nothing but itself. There is no good that touches it, there is no evil that touches it. Can you see that? Good and evil, the way we understand it, are products of the inner mechanisms and inner workings of existence. But if you can understand existence as a whole, why is good good? Because you contrast it with evil, don't you? Why is day day? Because you contrast it with night. Gender contrast, male and female. You're getting all these things through contrasts, aren't you? Gabriel is a genderless being. He doesn't have a contrast of a female or a male. So there is no contrast of male or female. Can you see that? In the case of Jibreel. Because he doesn't have an opposing gender. He's a genderless entity. Jibreel is not a man, right? He's not a woman.
Right.
Did you know that?
I always imagine that he was male. I don't know why. I don't know. I thought he came in the form
So
of
what is God? Is he a man?
No, some not.
God's not a man, right?
No,
Is God a man? I'm genuinely asking, is God a man?
no, he doesn't have a gender. But
Then you'll be able to contrast him.
So if God is not a man,
Yeah.
yes, can you contrast him with men and women?
no,
You can't, can you?
No.
Yes? Is God good? Is there a contrast of evil with God? Is there any other God that's evil? So you see, when we say God is good, we are saying it with certain reservation, aren't we? Because truly God is God. Good, evil, values don't touch Him. Similarly, this existence as it flows forth, right,